recently. I do it quite a bit. Great. Okay. Well, that's a plan that I'm working on. I don't want to instigate any kind of plan like that before DPR Jones Blog TV. I do want to make a mention at this point. While we've got over 450 people in the room, that on September the 18th will be the 24-hour Blog TV marathon with DPR Jones and with lots of people involved and hopefully a few surprises. And it should be a really good fun and just a really good cause. So put that date in your diary. There will be absolutely like a metric shit ton of promotion, I think, starting next month. So I'm sure you can't help but know by the time it rolls around. So after that, I would think about the idea of trickling down, trying to get the subscribers more evenly spread, and hopefully to bring new channels. There are people out there who post videos and they get 0 views. And I see these videos pop up in my friends' feed because they've added me as a friend. But I see that they're 3-hour-old videos with 0 views. And these people may have something, interesting to say, and no one really knows because no one's watching them. So it'd be nice to get all of those channels that are just starting up off to a strong start. So I just want to get back on the topic because I really went off topic there, back onto the topic of community, cause, and hierarchy. Thunderfoot has been messaging me on Blog TV, and I want to take on board what he's saying. I think he's made a good point, which is to discuss to get really into this notion of hierarchy a little bit more. I'm going to go with Triumph on this one first. The Amazing Atheist is the most highly subscribed of what we know as the YouTube atheists. Do you think this is a good or a bad thing that he is at the top?
Well, I'll have to use my own personal bias there, if that's all right.
I knew this was going to be controversial because everyone has views.
I'm going to be reasonable.
Kind of thing that forms drama, but yeah, no. By all means.
I'm going to be reasonable. What I watch of The Amazing Atheist, which is not an enormous amount, but it's enough to form a valid opinion on him and his work. I can't actually recall any videos he's made about atheism particularly. I'm sure he's done them, but it's more the fact that he has atheist in his name, and what he's known for is being volatile and vitriolic, sometimes with cause, sometimes without. He doesn't engage me. I'm sure there's a lot of people that he does engage as well, because I don't think he really says anything particularly interesting or relevant. Therefore, I think it's a bad thing that he is identified as the #1 YouTube atheist, because he's completely divorced from all the things that, for example, Thunderfoot on Exodus, Aaron Ra, all those guys are known for, which is making an argument against another argument, or refuting, or in some way making a point, or in some way spreading knowledge or ideas or intelligence in whatever way.
Or selling t-shirts.
Yes, well that's a more minded.
Okay, I hate to cut you off, but I really, because we're cutting into the last 10 minutes, I want to get through a few of these. So I'm going to move on to Andy, but I do think they're good points.
Bad thing.
Bad thing. Andy, I want to ask you about Pat Condell. Now I'm just going to make an assumption that you're probably aware of Pat Condell. Some people in the chat have said he's the second highest subscribed. I'm not sure exactly where he is, but he's certainly close to the top. He's not a big, one thing I will say about him is he's not a big community player. He posts his video, he bucks off, he doesn't comment on his own videos, and he doesn't comment on anyone else's videos. Good or a bad thing to have him so highly subscribed?
Well, I hate to make this, us saying, we think it's a bad thing that the highest subscribed people are the highest subscribed people. But with Pat Condell, exactly what you said, he doesn't really engage the community. So that's a big problem, which, almost makes him kind of not a very significant part of the community, in my opinion. But, it's also the fact that I disagree with him on a lot of things. But I guess I'd have to say with a bad thing, simply because, what you want, if you want people to be more involved in the community, is you want someone who is highly subscribed, who is involved in the community, and Pat Condell just isn't that. That's just not what he does.
Yeah. If you could, suggest some advice to Pat Condell, putting aside perhaps particular views on politics or particular views on, let's just say Islam, without getting too controversial, what would be your advice to him, getting involved with the community?
Well, I'm sure most people here have seen like Coughlin's responses to Pat Condell, and those, have a lot of views on them. And it would be kind of nice if, he would address those, or just, maybe talk to some of the, well, I guess there aren't too many big Christians on YouTube, but, I guess just address a lot of the criticism, address, comments. I don't even know if he posts comments at all. That would be my advice, just, get involved in the community, and that tends to lead more people getting involved in the community.
Yeah. Pat Condell takes quite a direct approach to, how he addresses theists in general. When he does get on the topic of atheism and he addresses specific theists like, say, the Pope or this Imam or that rabbi, it will be quite a direct approach and, often insulting. And I'm not going to say that I necessarily disagree with that. But going to a different type of approach, Edward Current. Edward Current was a YouTuber that I became acquainted with fairly early on as he started making videos. I think he actually may have started after I did, but I immediately came across his first video and I subscribed. But after a while, I actually did unsubscribe from Edward Current because I wasn't watching his videos. I know it's going to be a controversial thing to say, but I just didn't find his videos particularly enlightening or funny at all. I didn't find his approach funny. That's just a personal opinion. James, do you think that this approach of being a Poe is actually more effective than what Pat Condell does with his ultra-aggressive... we're talking about two comedians, essentially, here, or people who at least claim they're comedians themselves. Do you think that Pat Condell's approach is more constructive, or do you think that Edward Current's is more constructive?
I think that in certain respects they're both misguided. People that aren't going to listen to somebody who's yelling at them, and they're also not going to listen to somebody who's making fun of them. I think that these two particular guys that we're discussing are really making videos for atheists. That said, I think that the one that is potentially more constructive would be Edward Current, simply because I think humor has a easier time crossing bridges than vitriol does. But I don't think that either of them are particularly effective in really changing people's minds. Simply because that's not what that approach does. Conversation is something that changes people's minds, I think.
Of all of the approaches that are made, lots of people in the chat, including Don Exodus, who is here, has said that both of these people are necessary, even though they do different things, they take different approaches. And a lot of people will often say that there is a necessity, if you like, to have all of the different approaches that we have taken across the atheist community, this broad spectrum of different approaches, because each of them will reach at least some types of people. But there's also a danger that it makes the entire community look like a bunch of assholes, because there are a few people taking the asshole approach, whilst the majority are not. And that reflects badly on the community and reflects badly on all of us. But if you had to name what you thought was the best approach to take, I don't really know all